How to eliminate insecurity from your mind. You're here because you're tired of second-guessing yourself, tired of holding back, tired of that voice that keeps whispering, "You're not ready, you're not enough." This message is for you. We're not here to boost your ego. We're here to help you build real, unshakable confidence from the inside out. You'll learn how to stop overthinking, break the cycle of self-doubt, and finally move forward with clarity and strength. Listen closely. Save this video. Play it every morning if you need to, because this isn't a one-time fix, it's a daily reset. And if even one line speaks to you, take 3 seconds and comment. I choose clarity over doubt. Simple. No pressure, just action. And if you're ready to grow, hit subscribe. Let's do this together. 1. Stop chasing perfection. It's a mask for fear. Most people don't realize that what they call high standards is just fear wearing a suit. You think you're aiming for excellence, but what's really happening is avoidance. You're avoiding judgment, avoiding failure, avoiding the possibility that you might try and not be good enough. And because of that, you don't start. You wait for the right time, the better plan, the perfect clarity. But here's the truth. Perfection doesn't bring peace. It brings paralysis. While you're caught in an endless cycle of preparation, someone else with half the answers has already taken the leap, stumbled, learned, and moved ahead. You tell yourself you're being responsible, detail-oriented, careful, but deep down, you know it's hesitation fueled by fear. Fear of criticism, fear of disappointment, fear that once you show yourself, you'll be exposed as inadequate, and that fear builds a wall between you and your potential. Now think about this. When was the last time you respected someone simply for being flawless? You respect people for their courage, their consistency, and their ability to move even when things aren't perfect. You admire action, not polish. The Stoics understood this long before social media and performance culture existed. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for the stars to align. He didn't obsess over whether his words were elegant. He focused on doing what mattered, on being useful, disciplined, clear. Because progress, real progress, is never clean. It's messy, it's awkward, it's full of detours and retries, but it moves. And that movement builds strength. The people who grow, who lead, who rise, aren't the ones chasing the flawless path. They're the ones who act, reflect, and adjust. That's it. No fantasy, no magic. So the next time you catch yourself rewriting that same email for the 5th time, or delaying a decision because it's not quite right, ask yourself, what am I really afraid of here? Is this about quality, or is this about comfort? Because perfection is comfortable. It gives you a reason to stay stuck. It protects your ego while killing your progress. And that's the trap. You end up trading momentum for image. You become more concerned with looking prepared than being prepared. More worried about appearing strong than actually building strength. But perfection doesn't build self-discipline. It weakens it. Because every time you delay action in favor of perfect conditions, you reinforce the belief that you're not ready, not enough, not capable. You train your brain to hesitate, and over time, that hesitation becomes a habit that robs you of inner clarity, confidence, and direction. The way out is simple, but not easy. You have to act before you feel ready. You have to ship the thing while you're still doubting it. You have to show up when your voice still shakes. Because that's how confidence is built, not through flawless execution, but through repeated, imperfect attempts. That's how emotional self-control is trained, not by silencing all fear, but by moving through it. That's how you grow, not by waiting for certainty, but by making peace with uncertainty and showing up anyway. Every single time you act in spite of fear, you send your mind a new message. I can trust myself. And that, more than perfection, is what rewires your identity. So stop chasing perfect. Choose movement. Choose progress. Choose the version of you that acts, not because it's easy, but because it's time. 2. Remember you're going to die, so live boldly. You fear embarrassment. But what you should fear is reaching the end of your life, realizing you never truly lived. That's the real tragedy, wasting this one short, fragile chance at being alive because you were too afraid to look foolish. You hesitated, overthought, and played small because of what someone might say, because of what might go wrong, or because the timing wasn't perfect. But death isn't theoretical, it's guaranteed, and you don't get to choose when it comes. You don't get to ask for more time when you've spent decades postponing what mattered. That's why the Stoics kept death close, not as a threat, but as a teacher. Seneca said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." You delay the conversation you need to have. You wait another year to start the project that's been calling to you for 10 years. You stay in jobs that drain you, relationships that shrink you, routines that numb you, not because you want to, but because you assume you have time. But what if you don't? What if today really was the last? Would you still care what that stranger on the internet thinks? Would you still be scared to share your truth, to ask for help, to begin again? There's a quiet kind of power in remembering your life has an expiration date. It doesn't make you reckless. It makes you real. It grounds you in the present. It sharpens your clarity. It kills hesitation. Suddenly, the fear of looking stupid feels laughable compared to the weight of not showing up at all. And that's the shift. You stop living for appearance and start living with intention. You stop waiting for permission and start moving with urgency. Because the clock is ticking, and the luxury of someday is just that, a luxury. The truth is, your fear of failure is a whisper when you stand next to the silence of regret. No one will remember that you stumbled, but you will remember that you didn't try, that you buried your voice under a layer of doubt, that you never built the life you wanted because you were busy editing yourself for people who weren't even paying attention. So how do you eliminate insecurity at its core? You expose it to something greater. The truth that time is short and nothing is promised. When you see your mortality clearly, you stop overthinking your words and start speaking from the heart. You stop analyzing every risk and start walking your path, even trembling. This doesn't mean rushing or forcing. It means living with urgency, not anxiety. Living with presence, not panic. It means honoring your time by choosing action, clarity, and purpose over endless hesitation. Each day becomes sacred, not because it's dramatic, but because it's finite. And when you see time as a gift, you stop wasting it performing for people who don't know your story. You live boldly, not loud, but honestly. So ask yourself tomorrow morning before the noise starts, if today were my last, what fear would I finally let go of? Let that answer guide your next step, not next week, now. Because fear might delay you, but mortality will wake you up. And once you see clearly, you won't just eliminate insecurity. You'll outgrow it. 3. Self-control is the foundation of true confidence. If you've made it this far, let's stop for a moment and acknowledge something real. Most people don't. They click away when the conversation gets serious. But you're still here, and that tells me something about you. You're not just interested in feeling better, you're here to be better. That's rare, that's powerful, and that's exactly the mindset needed to understand this next truth. Your confidence doesn't collapse because of what happens to you. It collapses because of how you respond to it. The moment your emotions hijack your actions, the moment your thoughts spiral into reaction instead of intention, you lose your footing. You start to believe that the chaos outside of you is stronger than the clarity inside of you. But it's not. That's a lie. Insecurity tells you when you haven't yet mastered the one thing that changes everything, the space between stimulus and response. That space is your real power, and most people never learn to use it. It's not your coworker's comment that ruins your afternoon. It's the argument you rehearse in your mind for the next 5 hours. It's not your partner forgetting to text. It's the meaning you attach to it that wrecks your peace. You live in reaction mode, constantly responding to the world as if you have no choice. But you do. You always do. And this is where self-control becomes more than just discipline. It becomes your freedom. The Stoics understood that you are not your emotions. You are the observer, the one who chooses whether to fuel them or release them. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That isn't a quote to admire. It's a challenge to accept. Because real confidence doesn't come from pretending to be untouchable. It comes from choosing how to act when your old habits tell you to lose control. It's standing in the middle of a storm, shame, anger, anxiety, fear, and staying centered anyway. But here's what they don't tell you. Self-control is not cold. It's not robotic. It's not about shutting down or pretending things don't hurt. It's about being awake. Awake enough to say, I see what's happening inside me, and I still choose my response. That one breath between reaction and intention, that pause, is where your power lives. And every time you take it, every time you stop yourself from spiraling, from snapping, from sabotaging your peace, you build a stronger identity. You prove to yourself that your emotions don't own you. You own your choices. And nothing creates deeper confidence than that. Because if you can trust yourself in the hardest moments, you stop needing external validation to feel steady. You carry your calm with you. You walk into conflict with clarity. You respond to life like someone who trains their mind daily, not just to survive, but to lead, to build, to grow. So next time you're triggered, don't rush to act. Don't rush to speak. Pause, breathe, and ask yourself, is this the version of me I want to reinforce? That small question might be the most important thing you do all day. Because every reaction is a vote for the person you're becoming. Choose wisely. Your mind is watching. And with each act of self-command, you're not just eliminating insecurity, you're rewriting who you are. 4. Question the stories you tell yourself. Insecurity isn't always loud. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It hides behind familiar thoughts you've repeated so many times that they feel like the truth. Thoughts like, I'm not the type who succeeds, or I always mess things up, or I'm just not confident like other people. You don't even question them anymore. You just accept them. But what if the real issue isn't who you are, but what you've been told you are? Maybe it wasn't direct. Maybe no one said the words out loud, but you felt them. From a parent who only praised your sibling, from a teacher who made you feel small in front of the class, from a friend who laughed when you dreamed out loud. Those moments dig deep, they plant seeds, and over time, without knowing, you start watering them. You turn the doubt into your identity, not because it's who you are, but because it's what you've been repeating. Now here's the truth the Stoics knew. Your suffering rarely comes from the event itself, it comes from the meaning you give it. Epictetus said, it's not events that disturb us, but our judgment of them. That means you can change your experience of life by changing how you interpret it. But that doesn't happen by chance. It takes awareness, it takes self-reflection, and it takes the courage to ask one of the most important questions you'll ever ask yourself. Is this thought even true? Most of the time it's not. It's just an old tape playing in the background. A habit of thinking, a pattern you didn't choose, but you can change. Your brain doesn't care if a thought is good for you. It only cares if it's familiar. That's why self-doubt sticks. You've repeated it for years. You've reinforced it by avoiding risks, shrinking your voice, playing small. And now your mind thinks it's keeping you safe, but it's not. It's keeping you stuck. If you want to eliminate insecurity, you have to stop feeding your brain the same old lies. You have to start giving it new evidence, new language, new patterns that align with the person you actually want to become. That starts with catching the voice in real time, noticing when it shows up, noticing when it says, you can't handle this, or you're going to fail again. And instead of following that voice like a script, you interrupt it. You say, that's not the truth. That's just fear wearing a mask. And then you speak a new sentence, a stronger one rooted in clarity, not memory. This isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about training your mind to stop assuming the worst about yourself. You don't grow by repeating your insecurities. You grow by replacing them with thoughts that move you forward. The more you do this, the more your identity shifts. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stop believing in a version of yourself that was never real to begin with. You become grounded, focused, capable, not overnight, but with daily truth. So the next time a limiting belief pops up, pause, breathe, and choose the better story. Not the louder one, not the older one, the one that actually builds who you want to be. That's how mental clarity forms. That's how emotional discipline is built. And that's how insecurity, one thought at a time, finally begins to lose its grip. 5. Let go of what you can't control. The fastest way to drain your mental strength is by obsessing over things that were never yours to control. You prepare, you show up, you give your best, and then your mind spirals. You replay conversations, read between the words that weren't even spoken, analyze the tone of a text, or fear the outcome of something already done. That spiral feels like action, but it's actually anxiety disguised as effort. And if you keep feeding it, it becomes your habit, an inner loop where peace has no room to live. The Stoics had a clear line in the sand. Epictetus taught, "Some things are up to us, and some things are not." That's not just a quote. It's a dividing line between emotional slavery and inner power. When you try to control how others perceive you or how a situation unfolds that's already in motion, you abandon your power. And the longer you stay there, the more insecure you become. Not because you're weak, but because you're fighting a battle that can't be won. Here's what most people get wrong. Letting go isn't passive. It's discipline. It's strength. It takes far more courage to release what you can't control than to obsess over it. And yes, it feels unnatural at first. Your brain is wired for prediction and safety. It wants certainty. But real peace doesn't come from knowing every outcome. It comes from mastering your response to any outcome. That's what the Stoic mindset is about. It's about shrinking your focus until it's razor sharp, until your energy is spent only on what you can directly influence. Your effort, your clarity, your discipline, your reaction. Everything else, how they see you, what they choose, how the world moves, belongs to a category you must learn to bless and release. This is where emotional self-control becomes your weapon. When you find yourself worrying about someone else's opinion or trying to force a result, you pause and ask one powerful question. Is this within my control? If the answer is no, your next move isn't action, it's letting go. Not because it's easy, but because it's effective. That one act, done repeatedly, rewires your mind. You begin to see your energy as something sacred, something not to be scattered on uncertainty. And over time, the space that used to be filled with insecurity begins to hold clarity, presence, and strength. You're no longer dragged around by your emotions. You become anchored. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You still care about results, but your worth doesn't hinge on them. You still pursue excellence, but you're not crushed by rejection. That's the shift. And the more you live from this place, the more power you reclaim. Because now you're no longer reacting to life, you're living it on your terms. And that's where lasting peace begins. Not in mastering the external world, but in mastering your internal one. So next time your mind spins into fear, into overthinking, into that loop of what if, stop, breathe, return to what is yours. Focus on what you can control and release the rest. That's how you eliminate insecurity. One thought, one breath, one act of surrender at a time. 6. Know yourself so you stop doubting yourself. Insecurity doesn't begin with how others see you. It begins with how well you see yourself. Most people spend years trying to decode the world, studying the behavior of friends, strangers, coworkers, lovers, hoping to answer one unspoken question: do they accept me? But this outward chase always leads to exhaustion. Because what's truly missing isn't their approval, it's your self-awareness. If you don't understand your own thoughts, emotions, and beliefs, you'll always hand your confidence to someone else. You'll walk into a room and lose your sense of worth the moment a glance lingers too long or someone seems distant. You'll mistake silence for rejection and feedback for failure. And worst of all, you'll never feel safe inside your own mind. The truth is, insecurity grows in darkness. In the places you refuse to look, the habits you don't question, the emotions you suppress, the wounds you ignore. But the Stoics lived differently. They trained their minds not by controlling others, but by studying themselves. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And he was right. You don't lose peace because of what happened. You lose it because of the story you told yourself afterward. So if you want to stop doubting yourself, start by knowing yourself. Ask the questions that actually matter. Not, will they like me, but why do I need them to? Not, why do I get so angry, but what am I protecting? Not, why can't I stay consistent, but what part of me believes I'll never be enough, no matter what I do? Because underneath the surface reaction is a deeper truth, and if you don't uncover it, that insecurity will keep whispering. It'll tell you to stay small, to seek validation, to keep performing, to avoid silence. But silence is exactly where you need to go. That's where the work happens. That's where self-reflection begins to replace self-rejection. The Stoic path isn't soft, it's disciplined. It demands that you sit with your discomfort, observe your emotions without judgment, and trace them back to their origin. Because when you understand yourself, doubt starts to dissolve. You no longer need others to define your worth. You stop overreacting to small things because you see the larger pattern. You stop chasing status because you're aligned with purpose. And you stop apologizing for who you are because you've met the truth of you and made peace with it. This is where mental clarity is born. Not in noise, not in approval, but in solitude and honesty. So if your mind feels like a battlefield, it's time to turn inward. Look at your patterns. Look at your fears. Ask where they came from. And keep asking until the fog lifts. Because every honest answer, no matter how uncomfortable, is one less weight you carry. This isn't theory, it's practice. And the more you do it, the more natural it becomes. You start waking up with emotional discipline. You begin to build unshakable self-respect. You're no longer reacting to life, you're grounded in it. And that's how you eliminate doubt, not by being perfect, but by being real. When you know yourself, the world loses its power to shake you. And your peace becomes a habit built from the inside out. 7. Act. Even when you don't feel ready, you will never feel completely ready. And if you wait for that moment, where fear disappears, where doubt vanishes, where everything feels perfectly aligned, you'll be waiting for the rest of your life. Because the truth is, confidence is not a starting point. It's what you gain after the action. Most people confuse the two. They believe they need to feel strong before they act, composed before they speak, certain before they leap. But the Stoics knew better. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask for certainty. He wrote, "Just do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter." And that right there is the blueprint. Because fear doesn't vanish when you think about acting, it begins to fade the moment you do. Your mind learns not by being told it's safe, but by being shown. So when you delay, when you hesitate, when you overthink, what you're really doing is teaching your mind that doubt is more powerful than movement. But the moment you act, even with shaking hands, you're shifting that belief. You're showing your brain that forward is still possible, even through discomfort. This is how emotional control is built, not in silence, not in theory, but in motion. You take a small step, you say the difficult truth, you begin the uncomfortable conversation, you start the project, you walk into the unknown, and your mind starts adapting. It says, he didn't break, she didn't crumble, we're still standing. And little by little, that builds identity. That shapes discipline. You begin to detach from the need to feel perfectly ready, and you start valuing action more than emotion. You stop waiting for ideal conditions and start realizing that the storm isn't the enemy, inaction is. You become the kind of person who acts anyway, not because you're fearless, but because you've trained your mind to follow direction, not drama. You've stopped being controlled by emotional hesitation and started trusting practical momentum. And the best part, this works anywhere. Whether it's calling someone you've been avoiding, writing the first page of the book, leaving a toxic situation, or speaking up when it's easier to stay quiet. You don't need a grand plan, you need a moment of courage. And that's enough, because courage, when repeated, becomes consistency, and consistency becomes confidence. You no longer live as someone waiting, you live as someone building, someone focused, someone who rewires their mind daily through action, not intention. This is how real growth happens. You don't force confidence to appear, you earn it by showing up again and again, regardless of fear. You become mentally tougher every time you push past that wall of resistance. Every time you refuse to be held hostage by doubt, you reclaim your power. And that's the shift. That's the moment your mind stops fighting you and starts following you. So today, forget waiting. Forget perfection. Choose movement. Because movement, no matter how small, builds evidence. And evidence builds trust. And that trust becomes the foundation of a powerful, disciplined life. The life you've been avoiding because of fear? It's already possible. You just need to take the first imperfect step and then the next, until acting without confidence becomes your new identity. That's how you eliminate insecurity, not by escaping fear, but by proving you no longer obey it. The truth is simple. Peace, discipline, and emotional control aren't talents. They're trained. They're built through daily choices. You stop chasing approval when you start respecting yourself. You stop doubting when you begin asking better questions. And you stop waiting when you decide to act, even without confidence. That's how clarity grows. That's how your mind becomes your ally, not your enemy. Each of these Stoic practices we've explored isn't just theory. They're tools. Tools to help you rewire your habits, break the emotional patterns that keep you stuck, and build the inner strength you've been looking for. So now, it's your turn. Share your story in the comments. What's the one thing you're going to do differently after hearing this? Don't keep this message to yourself. Someone else might need it too. Like the video if it spoke to you, and hit subscribe for more mindset strategies to help you grow stronger every single day.